sky at night. Take me home. Haunting
Hello everybody, welcome to Red Sky, a bonus Red Sky with, and joining me today is Craig Hignett. Craig, cheers for your time. How are you getting on, mate?
Yeah, I'm all right. It's like everyone, it's been a real strange one, hasn't it? Where you've been no fans in football, but hopefully now there's a bit of light at the end of the tunnel and we'll be in the ground soon.
Yeah, certainly some stories to tell after lockdown, won't there? Football behind closed doors and everything. There'll be a lot to tell in years to come from players that have been playing in this, Craig.
Yeah, there will. I mean, I've been fortunate as well because I've been watching Liverpool and been able to get into the games.
Yeah.
And doing work for the radio. So it's been fortunate that way, but it's been weird. It's just like pre-season friendlies. And I think players now have got used to it. And it's, for some players, it's actually worked out okay because of that pressure. There's not that pressure of making a fool of yourself in front of 40,000 people. So they've got away with it a little bit and certain players have revelled in it.
Did you happen to be in the ground at Anfield then, Craig, when they let a few fans in?
Yeah, I do all the home games. So any home game that's there, I'll get in the ground and like I say, fortunate enough to watch Liverpool. Although recently it hasn't been that fortunate for me because they're going through a sticky patch and they've struggled a little bit at home. But previous to that, I've been doing it for 2 or 3 years and never seen them lose at home.
a bit like my father-in-law. He went to the 2 Wembley appearances, and whenever he comes to an home game, then because he's not a season ticket holder, he's not seen them lose. So luckily, whenever he comes, Barnes will do quite well. Right then, Craig, we'll get stuck into it. Then we'll start at the beginning. Born 12th of January 1970 in Wiston, Lancashire. Do you remember what game first got the attention of a young Craig Hignett and got him attached to the beautiful game?
A mixture of things really, but firstly, I was born in Huyton.
Yeah.
It says Wiston on all the stuff that I'm in. Wiston's in. I was born in Huyton in Liverpool, so
yeah,
that's where I was born. I don't know why people say it was Wiston. It was only the hospital in Wiston.
Well, there you go. Then that's it.
Yeah, but I was born in Huyton.
Yeah,
I'm a Huyton lad. But
yeah.
I think my dad was a football man. He played football and then went on to manage men's teams. So from as early as I can remember, I was going with my dad to watch football and watch his teams play. And there wasn't one specific game that got me into it. It was just through going and mixing with it and watching it. And, you know, I always wanted to play. I always had a ball, my dad said, from when I was, when I could walk, really. And it was always something going through school life that was massively important to me, playing football. And it was natural that's what I was going to do.
Yeah. It's obviously I've been reading up, Craig. You spent 2 years at Liverpool in your youth career. The 70s and 80s, Liverpool, very big, massive club, biggest club in England, winning trophies. What was it like walking into a club of that magnitude at such a young age?
Amazing. I trained there from when I was 11 years old. And then I was at Everton first. Then Liverpool see me and guaranteed me an apprenticeship when I was 11. Now, the apprenticeships didn't start till I was 16. So
yeah.
I then went and trained, and then when I walked through the door at 16, you know, my hero, Kenny Dalglish, was my hero. Sammy Lee was one of my favourite players. And to walk in and see all these people who I'd watched on the Cop week in, week out and idolised and had hanging on my bedroom wall when I was a kid, to walk in and suddenly be washing the kit and doing the boots and training with them sometimes if we were lucky enough. It was a dream come true. Every day it wasn't work, it wasn't a chore. I was never bothered about washing someone's socks. They were all my heroes, and it was something that I found to be a privilege to do.
Yeah. Your senior career, Craig, started at Gresty Road with Crewe, Alexandra. A very impressive spell there. 4 years, 121 appearances, 41 goals, a goal nearly every 3 games. So you had an eye for the back of the net early doors, Craig. Who did you model your game on in the early stages of your career at Crewe?
I don't really think I modelled it on anyone because I was a winger, but I had favourite players. Kenny Dalglish was my favourite player and favourite all-time player and always will be. He was a centre forward. I wasn't really a centre forward. He played with his back to goal and was brilliant at it. I couldn't play with me back to goal. I was rubbish at it because I wasn't strong enough. Sammy Lee was probably someone who had a more closely modelled my game on. He was very energetic. He would 110% all the time when he was playing. And he was someone who I really looked up to. So I probably out of them both, Sammy Lee was probably one who I'd look at and try and model my game on a little bit. But like I say, I was finding my own way and trying to get my own style.
That's it. The individual always outs in the end, doesn't it? In 1992, Craig, you moved to Middlesbrough, 155 appearances, 33 goals, over a 6-year spell as well up at Borough. You know, like supporting Barnsley, I think your spell at Middlesbrough was never dull. Relegated in your first season, promoted 2 years later, relegated in 97, defeats in 2 cup finals, and to top it off, a little history for yourself, you were the first person to score at the new Riverside Stadium. So you had a full career for me. In those 6 years at Borough, you had a full career of highs and lows, didn't you?
Yeah, it was unbelievable. And certainly I think that's league appearances you're talking about and goals. I think it was something like nearly 200 appearances in all, and
that's right,
50 goals for them. So, and in that 6 years, almost 7 years, we did everything I wanted to do as a young boy, playing an FA Cup final, playing a cup final, playing a Premier League, get relegated. And I didn't want to get relegated as a young kid, but we got relegated twice, I think, when I was there.
Yeah.
Got promoted twice, maybe, when I was there. Maybe 3 times. So I've just done everything that you want to do as a kid. You know, that last season, the season I left, we got to the League Cup final, the FA Cup final. The following season, we got to the League Cup final again. Yeah. So we had 3 cup finals in a row, what we got to. In the meantime, we got relegated because we'd had 3 points taken off us for not turning up a game at Blackburn.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Which is controversial in itself. Yeah. So, and then to top it all off, the season we got the points taken off us and got relegated, we had to play, I think it was 8 games in 15 days.
Yeah.
And that was before the cup final, because we got to all the cup finals.
Yeah.
So it was, I've spoke about that season before, and really, when you're a player, you just do what you're told. But looking back, we were so leggy, so shattered mentally and physically with the amount of games we had to play. We didn't have a massive squad. We should never got relegated with that team. When you look at the names in that team.
Well, we're just going to come on to that, Craig. Some big high profile players came in, Ravanelli, Janino, Emerson, to name a few. What was the reaction like in the dressing room then to those players? Was the excitement among the boys? Was there a bit of scepticism about these lads coming in?
At the time, Middlesbrough and Steve Gibson, he deserves so much credit. Could have signed anyone, and we're looking to sign unbelievable players. I think Nick Barmby was the first one who came in. We paid 5.25 million for him from Tottenham. And then after that, it could have been anyone. Ravanelli came, Emerson, Janino, who at the time he won best young player in the world. He just won playing for Brazil. When they all started to come in, I thought, and I can only speak for myself, but I thought this is brilliant. I'm at a club with unbelievable ambition who are signing the best players in the world. I'm going to get a chance to play with them. Yes, my place might be under threat, but it's up to me to up my game and prove that I deserve to be playing with these type of players.
Yeah.
And for me, it was a real godsend because my game did improve. You know, I got better. I was looking at people like Nick Barmby and Janino and thinking, well, you know, why are they so good? What can I add to my game that they've got? Because I was quicker than both of them. I was probably more, I had more about me, I thought. But obviously, they had things that I didn't have. And Nick was so clever, unbelievable player. Janino, ridiculous skill. His vision and his sense of awareness was frightening. So I was trying to pick little bits off them that I could add to my game, and it really improved me and helped me massively. So I was excited, and the bigger players that came, the better for me, because it was a chance for me to see what made them so good. I mean, Ravanelli was just an unbelievable finisher. He came, he was just so dead set on scoring goals. That's all he wanted to do, score goals, really selfish. But you need that. And it was great to see him play. I mean, to get to get a Ravanelli now, I've spoken about it before. He just won the Champions League with Juventus or the European Cup. But then he was top scorer in it.
Yeah.
So that'd be like signing a Ronaldo or a Messi or whoever the top scorer is now. Imagine how much that'd cost. And we got Ravanelli for £7.5 million. He was on £42,000 a week, like in 1997 or something, which was he broke the wage structure, I think, of the Premier League. But he was worth every penny. He was frightening, as was Emerson.
Yeah.
Emerson was the most strongest, most skillfulest player I'd ever seen. He was just on a different league to what I'd seen before and what I'd been playing with. So for Middlesbrough to be in the market for them type of players, it was brilliant for me.
Certainly was. Why did your spell at Middlesbrough come to an end then, Craig? And ultimately, what led you to Aberdeen?
I'd been offered a contract and I'd had a good season. I'd scored 2 goals on a final day to get promoted. I'd been at Middlesbrough almost 7 years. Everyone knew I loved it there, and maybe the people who were running the club didn't think I would ever leave, but I just felt the contract I'd been offered. It would have made me the worst player and the worst paid player in the squad.
Yeah.
And I felt I was up near the top of that squad for what I'd done in that season. So at that time, I was speaking to other clubs because I could. It was the first bit of the Bosman.
Yeah.
And I'd spoke to a couple of clubs. Brian Robson had always said, look, don't sign for anyone. Just phone me if anything happens. And I did phone him one Sunday, but he can't remember the conversation. And then I ended up signing for Aberdeen, who had offered me, actually, Aberdeen at the time had offered me twice as much as what Middlesbrough had offered me.
Right.
And it wasn't because of money. I just needed to get away and play. You know, Robbo had left me out of a cup final for not signing a contract. And I was disappointed with that. So I knew the writing was on I'd made my mind up really to go and see what it was like elsewhere.
Yeah, we can't fault you for that. 13 appearances at Aberdeen, Craig. I've got here 2 goals. A short spell by your standards, looking at Crewe, Alexandra, and then Middlesbrough after that. How was your time in Scotland, personally, professionally?
I actually I'd signed for Aberdeen. I'd just got divorced. My 2 kids who I had went back to live in Warrington. I signed in a sort of close season for Aberdeen, and then thought it was a mistake and phoned up the chairman, and my agent phoned up the chairman and said, look, I've made a mistake because of the family situation. But Aberdeen said, look, we'll help him out as much as we can. We'll give him Mondays off. And if there's no midweek game, he can have Mondays off. He can go home Saturdays and then come back Monday nights. So we decided to do it, but it was impossible. It was a 6-hour drive. Unless they took me off at half time on a Saturday, I couldn't get a flight back home. So it meant a 12-hour journey to see the kids for 2 hours, which I was doing maybe twice a week from there. So obviously, if you think about it, I'm doing 12 hours twice a week in a car to see the kids, to come up to train, to play games. It wasn't the most ideal situation. Well,
no, at 27, 28, Craig, as well, you're at your peak, aren't you, in your career? It's a long time in a car as well.
It was. I mean, listen, I've got nothing bad to say about Aberdeen, because Aberdeen was, at the time, I thought I was making the right decision. And I wanted to do really well for them. When it started really well, I scored 2 in my first 2, I think, or 3. But then it just became, the club went back on saying the Mondays off. So I couldn't get Mondays off. I was still trying to look for a house, and really I didn't feel like I got any help at the time. And I was in turmoil myself. I was, I'm not the person I am today. I was a little bit hot-headed probably and couldn't take a step back from it.
Right.
Looking back now, I should have got some help really. But I didn't. So I just had to try and sort it myself. But unfortunately, me being me at the time and hot-headed, I probably said things that I shouldn't have said and regret probably to this day. But all I wanted to do was see the kids and get out of it as in a as good a way as possible. The club got me for nothing, Aberdeen, and they ended up getting £1 million, I think, for me off Barnsley. So they done all right out the deal. But in the end, I was saying I'd pay me wages back that I'd have, and I'd just pack football in, or I mean, that's how bad it got at times, where I was just going to pack the game in and go and see the kids.
Yeah.
But obviously, you live and learn, and like I say, I'm not that person now. So I've always felt I've had unfinished business with Aberdeen.
Yeah.
And it was a club that I had some good friends there. I liked being up there, liked living up there. It was a lovely place to be, but just wrong place, wrong time for me, I think.
Yeah. The move to Barnsley then, Craig, how did that come about? And how quickly did you tell Martin Bullock not to jump at the chance to move in the opposite direction? Because we hear that story very often when we see interviews with Martin and yourself.
Yeah, well, Martin's a good friend of mine, and we had the same agent, actually. And obviously, John Hendrie, who I'd been a teammate with for years at Middlesbrough, he was manager at Barnsley. He knew I wasn't happy. Manchester City had actually spoke to me about going there. I think they just got promoted or were just in League One getting promoted. And John said, do you fancy it? And I said, well, if you can get me out, then yeah, I do fancy it.
Yeah.
So he agreed a fee with Aberdeen, came up. I'll always remember seeing John with a briefcase. It wasn't right, looking at John with a briefcase. It didn't ring true to me. And obviously Martin was up there, and John was in talking to the chairman of Aberdeen and Alec Miller, and I was outside with Martin. And Bully was saying to me, what's it like? And I said, look, I've got to be honest, Bully, I haven't enjoyed it one bit. I said, it's been rubbish. The training, you don't know where you're training. You were training on parks, you were training on different fields. I mean, it might be different now. I think it is different now, but it just wasn't. From coming from Rockcliffe at Middlesbrough to going to that was really difficult. So I just said, look, I've found it rubbish, but you might love it. And I was honest. And then we went in the room and they'd all agreed everything. And John had said, right, you happy? I said, yeah. Martin, are you happy? And Martin said, no, I'm not. He said, well, why? He said, well, and he pointed to me, and the very words he used was, Craig said it's shit. And I just looked and I thought, oh no, this is going to scupper everything. And all I said was, I can only tell the truth.
Yeah.
And anyway, Martin decided not to go. So I think John had to stump up another 300 or 400 grand to get me to go to Barnsley. So he's never forgiven me for that. He still says I owe him it.
Does he? Worth every penny, Craig, to be perfectly honest.
He's not getting it.
No, definitely. We've got a good stats man who works with us, very thorough stats, and looking at what he said to me the other day, you're one of Barnsley's all-time greats. I was 12 when you joined Barnsley. I remember it very fondly. And this in a starstruck moment, I can say honestly, hand on heart, probably one of the best and most entertaining players I watched at Barnsley in such a short period of time. We can back that up with stats here at Red Sky as well, thanks to Andy. At Oakwell, 77 appearances, 35 goals, 21 assists. Whilst you were on the pitch, 119 goals were scored, meaning you contributed to 47% of the goals whilst you were on the field. For an 18-month spell, Craig, that's quite the impact, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, straight away, I loved it straight away. It was almost as if everything that had gone before in the time I'd had up north had gone. I was so much happier. I was near the kids. It was, everything sort of clicked. And right from that first game against Huddersfield, it was almost like a dream, really. I found my form, found the old me back, and I had such an unbelievable time there that, as a player, you don't get many feelings like that. But at Barnsley, I had from the word go to the day I left, I had nothing but great happy memories.
Yeah, you spoke of your debut there, a bit like your Middlesbrough career. It wasn't dull, your debut. 2 goals, a missed penalty, and a 7-1 win over Huddersfield on Sky TV. Memorable to say the least, Craig, and your first experience of Oakwell under the lights, which players relish nowadays. Yeah,
it was fantastic. Couldn't have went any better. It still rankles with me, the penalty. I'm still annoyed with myself every time someone mentions it. I still get really annoyed with myself about missing it, because I think I only missed 2 in my career, and and that one, to get a hat-trick on your debut live on Sky, it would have been the icing on the cake for me. But I think taking that penalty ended up doing my hamstring as well, and John brought me off. just to make sure I was all right for the next game. I just tweaked my hamstring a little bit hitting it, but yeah, it still annoys me to this day, that penalty.
We'll talk about that game a little bit. Obviously, Ashley Ward played in that game and Bruce Dyer and yourself. And if I'm right, I think it's the only game all three of you played together.
Yeah,
for Barnsley.
it was.
What could have been if you three would have been playing for John for the full season?
Yeah, I mean, Ash was obviously in a great spell in his career as well. He
was.
He loved it at Barnsley. He'd scored loads of goals. He was a really good centre forward, Ash, and there was a lot of interest in him. And he ended up going to Blackburn. And I actually followed him after that. But
he paid for the new stand though, didn't he? So he paid for new stand, did Ashley? So
well, he did, yeah. I mean, when he went, he was, he was one of the most sought after strikers in the Championship. He was a really good player, and it was great to play with him because he was one of them centre forwards who you could hit the ball up to him and it'd stick. But he'd also work his socks off. He wasn't lazy by any stretch. He really worked his socks off, closed people down, done his job defensively, but scored goals.
He did.
And Bruce was obviously dynamic. He was powerful. He was quick. Eye for goal. Another one that the ball would stick. Really difficult to shake off the ball. So to play with two lads like that for me was great because I'd know when the ball's going up to them, it'd stick and I could make runs off them.
Yeah.
And that game just, it was an unbelievable game. I remember thinking at half time, what have I joined here? Because it was quite incredible. And then to cap it all off, the Darren Barnard goal.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it thinking, wow.
You see it on Twitter at least once a week, that goal.
Well, honestly, it's one of the best goals I've ever been involved with when, in live football. That goal for me was a real wow because I remember when he'd done it, I thought, no. And it was never going anywhere else. But he had unbelievable quality, Daz. He had great quality in his left foot. It was a real wand. So although that I'd trained with him a little bit, I didn't really know what he had in his locker. But having trained with him and played with him since, obviously I know how good his left foot is.
Absolutely. You came in under John Hendrie, as you said. You played with John at Middlesbrough. The club, Barnsley, still on the hunt for the Premier League a year after dropping out from the previous season. Ultimately, John didn't get a full season at the club after a disappointing league finish. How was it for you working under John Hendrie?
Loved it. John was building a decent side, and he did have to get players out because there was some players there who probably had clashes with him as player. To go from a player to a player manager, it's a really difficult thing. So he had things to sort out, but he was sorting them out and he was bringing in the right characters. So to play for him was great. I knew him really well. It was a tough one for me to call him Gaffer because I'd been that used to calling him Andy for years. But for me, he was getting it right and he would have got it right. But when he lost his job, it was a bit of a shock to me and I was really disappointed with it. I felt he'd made some really good signings.
Yeah.
We had the basis of the base of a really good team and the spine of a really good team.
Yeah.
And he knew what he needed, but just didn't have time to do it. So I was really disappointed for John.
Very indicative of football today, wasn't it? And that was like 13 years ago. Sorry, 23. Yeah, 23 years ago. It's mad when you think about it.
Yeah, it is. It was mad because, like I say, we did have the basis, and he was building a good side. And John's not daft. John knew what he needed because I'd had conversations with John about it, and he knew exactly what he wanted to do. He just needed time to do it, and unfortunately, the way football is and was and is, he didn't get it.